ask you this question. Do you think that those people would have done all those acrobatic things if there wouldn't have been a net? I mean, they'd be crazy to, right? Why? Because there's no margin, there's no room for error. In fact, I remember when they would remove the net sometimes when I would go to a circus as a child, and everybody's stressed out. I'm sure they were stressed out. We're even stressed out because somebody could die right in front of you, right? I don't even think they do that anymore. But you know, of course, when there's less margin, room for error, there's a lot more stress, and there's a lot less productivity, isn't there? You take a look at and you see the Golden Gate Bridge. Do you realize that at the start there were 11 people who plunged to their death in building the Golden Gate Bridge? 11 people. So they put a net underneath it, and 19 people fell into the net over the times. They called it the Halfway to Hell Club. All right, I mean and so think about it. At start, before they put the net down, they said that the production had gone to a crawl. I mean, it barely moved. But then when they did that, production tripled in speed because, again, where there's no margin, everything, production and stress, change over. And the same thing when there's a net there, and when there's a margin, suddenly you have not only less stress, but you have more production. And we took a survey of you guys and said, you know, what's the biggest things you're struggling with right now in life? And one of the biggest things was stress. One of the biggest things was busyness. And so we're attacking that today. And we want to welcome those who are watching online right now. We are so glad that you're with us. And God bless you guys. And just thank you for making Crossroads a part of your service today. We love you. And also, you think about it, we need margin in our life, don't we? I want you to think about a time. I want you to think about a time when you were driving and you looked in the rearview mirror and there's somebody just absolutely riding your bumper, right? And I mean, they are so close you can see the color of their eyes. Yeah, they're so close you can see what they had for dinner, you know, between the spaces. And think of this. What does that do to your driving experience when there's no margin? What does that do to your stress level? I mean, doesn't it just all of a sudden you have a white knuckle grip? It totally changes the whole way you drive, doesn't it? Why? Because we need margin in our life. And society, we live in a society that tells us to ride the bumper, don't we? We live in a society that says come as close to living on the edge as you possibly can. Financially, we live in a society that says spend everything that you make, in fact, even spend more than you make. And we wonder why we're so stressed out financially. We live in a society that says put everything on your calendar, absolutely fill your calendar to the brim, and then we wonder why we're so stressed out and just overtaxed and overbusy. We wonder why we have no emotional margin, and we wonder why we can snap at anything. And a lot of times we have no moral margin. We see how close we can possibly get to sin without sinning, and then we wonder why sometimes we fall over that ledge. We need margin in our life. So what is margin? Our soul's crying out for it. What is it? Margin definition number 1 says this: an amount available beyond what is actually needed. It's the extra or the reserve. And I want you to think about, reading a book. You've got the text, and then you've got the space on the side. What is that space on the side called? The margin, right? Have you ever tried to read a book that didn't have margin? It is freaky. I've seen 2 of those books, and it's just like you're going, oh, there's something wrong with this thing. And then you realize, man, there's no space for your eyes. If you've ever noticed that a road is not exactly the width of a car, it's got some margin on the side for protection. In the same way, have you ever seen somebody where they get in your personal space? I mean, and there's some people that, they get in, but then there's other people that, they get into your personal space, right? There used to be somebody in my first church, and he was just a great guy. He's an older man. I love this guy like crazy. But he would not only get in your personal space, he would literally come this close and put his face this close to you. And you're try talking to somebody this close. And he never noticed that, we did 6 laps around the coffee table when I was there talking to him. It was weird. We need space. We need margin in our life. And we understand that in the physical world. Why do we not understand that in our emotions? Why do we not understand that in our finances? Why do we not understand that in our calendar? Because the same is true in both situations. Margin definition number 2. Margin is the space between our current performance and our limits. Yesterday, I rode in a 60-kilometer bike ride with a bunch of other people, and you know what? We did not go as fast as we possibly could. If we'd have gone as fast as we possibly could, at least I would have been dead on the side of the road, right? And you have to pace yourself. And there's this weird combination in Scripture between saying that God says to whatever you find your hands find to do, work it with all your heart, and then saying you got to find margin in your life. He has not created us to go absolutely as fast as we can all day, everything. We have to pace ourselves in life. And if we don't understand margin, bad things are going to happen to us. And I'm going to talk about just a few of those. First of all, and I do not need to explain this to you, there is an increase in our stress level. Imagine, if you would, that you have two people. Two people are both trying to get to an important meeting in life. And one of them leaves home about 20 minutes early, just in case. The other person leaves exactly on time in order to get there by the GPS. And they both encounter bad traffic. Which one's stressed out? I mean, the first person may be a little stressed, going, man, I hope I make it, this bad traffic. But the other person's going to be stressed out the wazoo, right? They're going to be completely, totally stressed because there's no margin for error. How about this? Think about two couples. Think about one couple that they live within their means. In fact, every month they spend less than they make, and they put aside a little bit for a rainy day. The other couple, they spend absolutely everything they make, and they max out their credit cards and everything. Which is going to live the more stressed out life? Isn't it weird that the one who has less actually has less stress, actually enjoys a lot of times the life more? And what happens when a rainy day comes, what's going to happen to the second couple? What's their stress level going to be like? The first level, they're going to go, okay, this stinks, but we've saved aside some for a rainy day. These people haven't. We need margin in our life. And here's the fact. The less margin we have, the greater the stress. The less margin we have, the greater the stress. And here's Ecclesiastes 5:3 says this: overwork makes for restless sleep. Second thing is we enjoy life less. When there's no margin in life, the work we love becomes a drudgery. When we have no margin in our life, the people we love can become a pain. When we have no margin, the ministry we love becomes more of a pain than it is a joy. And we miss the benefits of life. We miss the joys of life. Because why? There may be roses all around us, but we don't have enough time to smell the roses because we're going from one thing to another too fast. Something else is our focus becomes self-centered. We begin focused on our time, our finance, our everything like this. An example of this, I had a friend that he and I went to spend some time in Europe together several years ago. And there was one time we're walking along a path and we're talking and everything because there's a lot of margin. There's a lot of room for both of us. But then we went out on this point in the North Sea in Ireland. And it was so narrow going out there. And I mean, there was no room for error whatsoever. I mean, you were going down hundreds of feet into the North Sea. Same thing on this. You may roll a few times and bounce a few times. You're hitting the North Sea. And so the first time we're talking everything, this time there was no communication, nothing at all, because we were totally focused on where we were going because there was no margin. Let me ask you this. If you have no financial margin, are you a generous person or a stingy person? If you have no margin in your calendar, are you generous with your time or are you stingy with your time? We need margin in those. We'll enjoy life less. We become focused, self-centered if we have no margin. The other thing is our relationships suffer. In order to swim, you need to have water. In order to have relationships, you need to have margin because margin happens in the relationship. Margin happens in the extras of life. And busyness is the kryptonite of relationship, just like kryptonite is for Superman. Some things to consider. First of all, God created us with limits. Every single one of us in this room, in every area of our life, we have limits. Every single one of us have financial limits. There are things we can spend, there are things we can't. Even Bill Gates has financial limits. You know, there's a lot more of it than us, about 60 billion more than us. But he has to stop spending at some time because he has limits. Every single one of us, we have physical limits, don't we? I can't lift a house. You can't outrun a car going full speed. None of us can be at the same place at the same time. We have physical limits. We have emotional limits too. We have things that we can, every single one of us, we can only handle so much stress before we snap. We can only handle so much emotional garbage before we need a break. I mean, you take a look at this. This is even a car. I mean, this is the strength of a car, all that steel, all that metal and everything, but you put enough pressure on it and it collapses too. It folds under the strain, and we're the same way. We were created that we can handle so much stress, but if we handle any more, try to handle any more, then we can cave in. We have emotional limits as limitations as well. Another thing to remember is God created us as relational beings. The greatest commandment according to Jesus Christ is this: you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your strength, and your mind. In other words, to put God first, to have your relationship with God is the most important thing in your life, or should be. The second thing is to love our neighbor as ourselves. The second most important thing in every single one of our lives should be relationship with other people. And so if our relationship with God is the most important thing, or should be the most important thing in our life, what does it say about our life if we don't have time for devotions? Or we don't have time for church? We don't have time for ministry? We don't have time for that because our life is too crowded. What does it mean in our life if relationships with other people is the second most important thing, and we don't have time for them? What does that say to us? What are maybe some things that God is saying about our life if the two most important things are squeezed out of the picture? Another thing is God mandates margin. You know, today there's going to be a race, and those incredible engines, they have a limit, don't they? They were created with a limit. They can only go do so many RPMs. And if you go more than those RPMs, they can go last forever with this, with a certain amount of RPMs, but you go more, you orange line it on the tachometer, and it's going to be only a while that you can handle that for a little while, but the engine is going to start breaking down if you do that very long. You red line it, that engine's falling apart at that point, and it's only just a time until that engine blows apart. God made us where we can only handle so much of life. That if we orange line it, we can orange line it for a little while, but our life is breaking down, and the important things in our life is breaking down. And if we red line it, our life is in serious trouble at that point. And God has, in His wisdom and in His love for us, said, "Thou shalt not keep going. He gave us one of the 10 commandments, not a suggestion, but a commandment. Here it is from Exodus 20. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but on the seventh day it is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work." And we go, wait a second, but what about, I've got this on the to-do, and He said, you shall not do any work. Thou shalt not go. That one day a week we are to take a break. One day a week we are to step back from everything and relax for that day, and also to keep it holy. Remember that day and by keeping it holy. This is one thing that I found out in life. I found out as I became a Christian and I started trusting God with a tithe, I found out that God can do way more with 90% than I can do with 100%. And a lot of you found that out. Something else that I found out because I would be busy 7 days a week, and I've started to take, several years ago, I started to take one day and making sure than really trying to protect that day off. And one thing that I found, God can do more in 6 days than I can do in 7 days. I was actually more productive in 6 days working than in 7. And I'm telling you, one time I spent some time in Israel, and I was in a Jewish family and invited several of us to spend a Sabbath day with them. And y'all, they got it going on the Sabbath. They did nothing. I mean, they did nothing. The day before everything, they started preparing, and here's what they did on the Sabbath. First of all, they worshiped. They went to the synagogue. They put God first in there. Second, you know what they did? They put family second. They went to a park and they just spent time together, relaxing as a family. At night, they invited friends over, and they'd already prepared the food the night before, so it was all you did just kind of throw things on the table. They always had a glass of wine. And the married couples, that night, they knew what they were going to be doing. And y'all, that's a good day, right? I mean, that's a really good day. And think of it, which is better, the way we do every week, Or to have one day, which one do you think is stronger in the Lord? One that always made sure that they worship God every week, made sure of that, and made sure they spent time with their family every week, and made sure they spent time with as a couple every week in emotional intimacy and physical intimacy. Which one do you think maybe there's something that we can learn from the way that? I bet our marriages, our relationship with God, and our families would be stronger if we just obeyed God. And remember, God said He did this for our sake, not for His, because He created us in that way. And here's I don't know if you saw this, but a while back there was a lady on the edge of a building, and she was going to jump off. And the homeless people saw what was going to take place. They were down there. There's a street that they were living, and they started yelling, "Don't jump, don't jump, don't jump." Another crowd gathered. This blows me away. And what do you think they're yelling? Jump, jump. What does that say about our society? First, that somebody would get a kick out of watching somebody do that. But the homeless people and these people started to fight. They got into a barn burner of a fight. And here's the thing that I think that we live in a society that says jump, 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 jump. Go to the edge, jump. And I think God is saying to us, don't do that. Don't go to the edge, always going to the edge. And I know what some of you are thinking. Some of you are thinking that, here's the big lie. Someday I'll have margin. Someday life will get in balance. Someday, and if we don't intentionally make it right now, someday we'll just go later and later and later. Make today someday. And another thing is we can find margin if we want to, can't we? I mean, we make time for the things that are most important in life. It's amazing that how a friend of mine, that after he had a heart attack, he realized he didn't have to go. He found margin in his life. There's a lady I know that when she was about to lose her husband, suddenly found time that she spent with him. It was not just go. She found time. And here's the big thing. Here's one thing that I love about snow days, about ice storms, is you realize, you know what? Some things can rest. That even though we are mandated, we are forced to not do anything, and we realize the world didn't fall apart. I mean, I did not do work, and the world did not fall apart when I just took it, when I could not work that day. Another thing is, so here's what in Isaiah 49:4 says this: I've used up all my strength, but I've accomplished nothing. Anybody relate to that? And we're saying, okay, you're right. What do we do about it? I think God gives us some things in His Word. First, give God control of your calendar. Romans 12:1 and 2. So here's what I want you to do. God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life. You're sleeping, you're eating, you're going to work and walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. He's saying first thing that we do in order to find balance in life, to find margin in life, give God make Him the priority, make Him the center. And that kind of sounds scary, doesn't it? But it's the most logical thing to do. You know why? God invented time. He invented us. He knows what works best, and He knows what should be in our calendar or not. And I know what a lot of type A people are going to say right now. Wait, God doesn't know. He's kind of out of touch. He doesn't know everything I have to do. He doesn't know everything that's on my calendar. And I think he probably, if he runs the universe, he can probably figure out what's on our calendar. He can probably work through that. And here's for the type A's in here, you probably think, well, if I really did that, I would lose my productivity. I would put again, God did everything in 6 days, and I'd say creating a universe, that's fairly productive on there. How about Jesus Christ? He lived 30 years. Only 3 years in ministry. Everything that we read about that Jesus did, He did in 3 years. And think about it. He changed the world, and all the life He ever had was 3 years. And here's the weird thing. We never see Him stressed. We never see Him freaking out. We see Him having time, not only doing ministry and doing that, we see Him hanging out with His disciples. We see Him hanging out with kids. We see Him partying. We see Him having times for all these things. And how did He do that? How did He do everything He had to do in 3 years, and yet He had time and all this margin in His life every day and every week? Maybe because He just let the Father, He said, I'm just doing what I see the Father doing. And I wonder what difference it would make in our life if every day we said, God, what do you want me to do today? Not what do you want me to do? And the next thing is realize that you can't do everything, and you're not supposed to do everything. Do you realize Jesus never did everything? Every day He went to sleep, there were more other people that needed to be healed. Every day He went to sleep, there were more people that needed to be saved. Every day of his life. He did not do everything that needed to be done every single day. There was a time he goes, time out, I'm done. Put a fork in me, I'm done, right? And what compels us to think that we have to pack everything into our calendars? I mean, you talk to somebody and you say, how are you? Oh, I'm busy. And it's almost like if we don't say we're busy, we're slacking off in life and we're doing something wrong. You know, some person came up after first service and said, I'll tell you what, it's like we almost have to apologize to have margin in our culture. She said, you know, somebody would call me up and they say, were you taking a nap? Oh, no, I wasn't taking a nap. Like she's doing something evil, taking a nap or something. And you don't have to do everything, and your kids don't have to do everything, right, parents? They don't have to. They don't have to be involved in every single activity and every single sport and every single, thing at school and every single club and every single everything. There's a balance in there, and we wonder, we do that, and we wonder why our family's so chaotic and everything when everything's so stressed out on the calendar. I remember early on in Crossroads, I was talking to somebody about going to youth group, and she said, my kids don't have enough time to go to youth group because my son's involved in 3 basketball leagues. And what's maybe something you could think of right there? Maybe 2 basketball leagues and God. Maybe if God's out of the equation, if God squeezed out of the equation, maybe we were a little too packed out in the rest of our life. Another thing is give yourself permission to rest. Listen to Mark 6. Then because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to them, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. And some of you may need to hear that. I'm going to say it again. Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. When Jesus saw things getting out of control, he pulled the plug, blew the whistle, and said, everybody out of the pool, we're just going to go take a break for a while. Give yourself permission to have fun. Listen to these from Ecclesiastes. One is, however many years a person may live, let he or she enjoy them all. How about this? Seize life. Eat bread with gusto. Drink wine with a robust heart. Oh yes, God takes pleasure in your pleasure. Dress festively every morning. Don't skimp on colors and scarves. Relish life with the spouse that you love each and every day of your precarious life. It's okay. It's okay to let your hair down. It's okay to have fun. Now, some of you, that's all you do. We need to get involved in a ministry, get involved in something, but for the rest, another thing, put margin in every week and in every day. If you have your bolts and your insert, pull this out a second. Everybody say DWA. Say, I will never forget DWA.
I'll never forget DWA.
Here's what it means. D is divert daily. The first thing is divert daily. That means every day, take a break, take an emotional break, take a physical break, take something where you have some time every day. One thing I do is I wake up just about every morning of my life and have a devotion, because I want to put God first in the center of my day. And that's one way I start out, with diverting from everything that I need to do. Usually throughout the week, most every day, I try to get some exercise, because that's a way that replenishes me. What replenishes you? Another thing, I walk around at night and I pray there, because again, man, it's just refreshing my batteries. It's just recharging it. It's just doing that. The other day on the bike ride, I saw something that we all do, is every once in a while we just do this with our hands. We stand up on one leg and everything, because you need a break. You're going. You need that time to just say enough. And we can do that every day. What feeds your heart? Maybe it's a hobby. Maybe it's watching a show. Maybe it's reading. Whatever it is, spending time with the family, spending time with in a time with God. What is it that feeds your soul? What is it that feeds your emotions and refills your tanks? Another thing is withdraw weekly. Withdraw weekly. And that's saying that every week that we truly take that day off and we remember God in that day. Jesus, it was amazing that Judas knew where to find him, because every day he spent time with the Father. Every day he had a time alone with God. And I think if Jesus did that, it's probably a good idea that we do that too. And again, the Bible said that he went to the synagogue as was his custom. Every week you'd have found Jesus in the synagogue, because he knew that he needed a time to recharge with the Father, just like we do. But take that time every week to relax, to enjoy, to have no work whatsoever. God commands us no work whatsoever for a 24-hour period. Another thing is to abandon annually. There's times that we just need to go out of the pool, that we need to just say, you know what, let's get together, let's go somewhere as a couple, let's go somewhere as a family. Even if it's, you don't have to go to some spectacular place, just getting alone, getting away. I had somebody just the other day tell me that they have not had a vacation in 5 years. Oh, God bless them. Because there's just times you have to just do that. There were times I had a battery with a camera that I had, and the battery would go down and down and down. And, first it would start out an hour, and then next charge would be whatever. And then you'd have to get it down to here. It's only about a 5 or 10 minute charge. This is several years ago. And you'd have to push the refresh button. And that just that drained it of everything, took it away from everything, and then built it right back up. And sometimes we need those times where we just are drained of everything so God can fill us back up. Listen to these words from God in Matthew 11. Jesus said this, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened." Anybody relate to that? And here's the reason. He said, "And I will wear you out." No, he didn't say that. He said, "I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." You know what that means? That if our yoke isn't easy in life right now, if we feel just oppressed, everything we have to do, it's not the Lord's weight we're carrying. It's not His yoke that we're doing. We're picking up somebody else's. We're picking up our own. We're picking up other expectations. And because Jesus is saying His burden is light and it's something we can carry. If we're going under the weight, it's not the weight God has for us. And finally, better one handful with tranquility than 2 handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. Divert daily, withdraw weekly, abandon annually.